Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about what I think are the most important items you should be bringing to the track. I'm going to start with the least important and get to what I think are the most important items. So let's get into it. This is my tote that has things like a helmet, things that go on my body. So I don't put fluids in this tote. The helmet actually is one of the most important ones, but I didn't want to leave it towards the end because you guys know it's coming. And this goes in the tote that is things that go on my body, like head sock, racing shoes, Hans device, gloves, things like that. These all go in one tote along with some other paper goods or whatever you want to put in a tote like that. But this is more race-oriented stuff, not including the helmet. Of course, you need a helmet for racing unless they rent out helmets or whatever. So don't put fluids and your racing gear in the same tote. So we're going to get on to the next one, which is my big tote on my little tool cart, if that makes sense. So I have the tool racks there, and then I have spare parts, and I have this bottom part that has bigger tools, and then I have the drawers and things like that too. But we have things like seals and gaskets. I have a little bag to drain my brake fluid into if I need to bleed my brakes, things like that. Duct tape, Jeremy Clarkson's favorite, a hammer, just bigger tools that you would use in your garage. This is more my race-oriented stuff. We're still in the race-oriented stuff. You can bring glass cleaner and stuff like that. This is all stuff if you want to bring, you can bring if you have room for it. Brake cleaner, all your bigger tools. Definitely electric ratchet are super handy to have. All your lithium tools or battery powered tools are super handy to have. Definitely suggest those if you have room for them. Like I said before, spare parts are good to have, and spacers, washers, all that good stuff. Also in my race pack, actually I bring this to the track on track days too, is just like my clothes, extra clothes, stuff like that, because you don't know when you're going to get stuck somewhere. It's good to have like a race day bag, but just use whatever you have. But it is good to have stuff like that. I put food in here too, and then like books and stuff. Like if I'm instructing or whatever, I bring books. It's good to have, definitely good to have visuals. I know you have the internet too, but it's good to have stuff that isn't always on the internet at your disposal, and stuff you've read and referred to, so you can kind of explain it better if you need to or whatever, or for yourself to read too. It's good to kind of look at that kind of thing. We have spare bolts and nuts. This is kind of goes in the spare parts department. I just have it kind of generally organized so it makes sense to me. And extra little parts and butt connectors and things like that. And then this obviously stacks on this one over here, but it's not stacked right now for ease of visual use. And then I have tools and things like that in here that I like to bring. These little wrenches are actually pretty handy for bleeding brakes and other little nib-jib stuff. This is a race, actually this is not a race bag. This is my daily driver bag that I bring with me almost everywhere I go. If I'm gonna go more than even 10 miles, I have this in my daily. I got wrenches, flashlight, battery, tool that kind of tells you voltage, cranking, all that good stuff, voltage tester, zip ties, all sorts of stuff. Code reader, but our phones do that now, so no biggie. And then this stuff's cool. I've never actually used it. It's called Form Card. You put it in warm water or whatever, and it gets malleable, and then you can make it into whatever shape, and it cools, and then it's like this hard plastic again. So might be handy for something in the future. Anyways, it's good to have in there. Just random stuff. Some stuff I don't necessarily need, but it's good to have a bag you can just grab and go, if you're gonna go do whatever and you might have a car that breaks. Jack stands and a jack are super handy. Not a necessity, but I've always brought those wherever I go, track days and autocross and all that stuff. So we'll get on to the next thing, which is I think it's good to have cameras like a GoPro, but this RAM mount, like if you have a phone, is super handy because you can just record video and do a track timer on your phone while it's just suction cup mounted to your windshield, and it's super sturdy and good. So RAM makes these mounts, and they're like specifically made for each phone, really easy to adjust and durable. So anyways, that's a good thing to have. Next thing are numbers. If you have them, I would bring them, magnetic numbers or vinyl or whatever suits you. I've just always had magnetic, but they get kind of dirty, so just make sure you clean them so you don't ruin your paint. Another big thing is food and drink. I'm not even going to leave that to the last thing because we all know food. I bring sandwiches, bananas, water. Obviously you need a ton of water. Granola bars, protein, anything like nuts, anything that's going to get you through if you've like camped or whatever. Bring that kind of stuff. That's like gonna survive. You're gonna help survive the day, and you don't necessarily need super salty stuff. I would eat salty stuff the night before, which is what I hear. I don't know much about it, but you're gonna retain more of that water, I guess, the next day. And then obviously a ton of water. Bring not just for you, but also your car. It's good to have if you lose a little coolant or whatever. It's good because it's kind of hard to find water at the track sometimes. So that's something I suggest. So the next one is gloves, which could be on my top 4 or 5 because it's really good to have them, not pinch your hands and fingers on stuff, and not worry about getting your hands dirty. In this case, my hands would probably get dirty because they got holes and they're just dirty, but you get the point. Hand protection, super good. Eye protection's good too, because you kind of need those too for driving. So the next thing would be on my phone. So I make a little list. This is like a super old list, but I call it the track day checklist. And let's just go through it real quick. Helmet, cooler if you're in a hot place, tote, Pumas, which I don't use anymore, but like racing shoes, numbers. Your license, drinks and snacks, GoPro, water, chair. Your paperwork, that's also good to have. Bring your signed paperwork if you need it. Transponder, a car key, tow hook. You want to be able to get towed out if you go off track or whatever, or you overheat. So let's get on to the last things that I think are super crucial that everyone usually has when they go to the track. This one, I would say power tools. At least the impact gun is like makes things super handy because you don't have to put physical effort into getting the wheel, the lug nuts off the car. You still have to put effort into getting the wheels off the car if you have to check something out. But battery tools are super handy to have. I think another super handy thing would be masking tape. It's not a necessity, but if you don't have numbers, make sure you have your own masking tape. Some people cover up the bumpers and things if they're worried about the pebbles and things hitting it. Very important. Make sure you check your oil and your fluids. Definitely your gas, your fuel, and your coolant too. So you want to make sure, for sure, you don't go out with low oil level. You want to make sure you have the right oil level. Some cars are even, you want to run higher, but just check on the internet or check on a reliable source for what oil you need to be running and what levels you need to be running and things like that, because you want to check that after every session and before you go on track too. But after every session, when the engine's cooled off a little bit, check that out. Next thing is I would call it an air pressure gauge, tire gauge, whatever you want to call it. This one's made by Long Anchor, and it's digital, super easy to read, super fast. Let's just turn it on here. It's got this rubber on it, which I like. Anyways, you can zero it out, which it's already zeroed, and it will tell you this is PSI, 0 PSI it's reading right now. Anyways, it's got this little button that releases air, so you don't have to like take the end off every time you want to release air or whatever. Sometimes you have to do that with them. And then anyways, Long Anchor makes a good one. Then the last one is a torque wrench. I think the torque wrench is, along with the oil, one of the most important things other than water and food to bring, because you want to make sure your lug nuts are torqued before you go out on track, because you don't want to go out with loose lug nuts, because you can hurt someone else or hurt yourself and your car. So you want to make sure you have your wheels torqued. Just a fast way to look at it is you check them in the morning before you get on track. Then after your first session, you want to re-torque them about 30 minutes after. You don't want to do it right after, because the lug studs have expanded at that point, and you're just re-torquing them when they're not ready to be torqued. You want to wait till everything contracts back and you re-torque them after they've cooled down a little bit. So torque wrench is a must. So that's about it for today. Glad you joined me. You spent some time with me here in my garage, and we talked about track stuff. So if you can, just subscribe. I'm looking for maybe 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And it's probably realistic. It's not that many subscribers, but that's a little goal I have. So thanks for joining me. See you next time.